The world looks different when nobody else is awake to see it. Most of us would agree that sleep is the one true luxury we have left in this busy, loud world. It's that soft, weightless surrender at the end of the day, where the noise finally just stops. But then, there is this idea, this sharp, uncomfortable itch that we are somehow missing the point. We hear these stories about the demons of discipline, the people who win before the sun even shows up. They talk about Further.m like it is a sacred gateway to a much better, much more powerful version of yourself. I used to think those people were just suffering from a very specific kind of collective delusion, honestly. Why would anyone leave the perfect warmth of a duvet for the cold, indifferent reality of a dark living room? It feels like a betrayal of the body, a strange kind of self-inflicted pressure that we label as growth. But curiosity is a funny thing. It starts as a small whisper and ends up keeping you awake at night. So, I decided to try it, to see if this magic hour was actually magic or just a very well-marketed myth. Setting that alarm for a.m feels like signing the legal contract that you know you are going to regret. When the sound finally hits your ears, it doesn't sound like motivation. It sounds like a genuine emergency. Your brain immediately tries to negotiate with you, offering 5 more minutes in exchange for your dignity. You realize, in that very moment, that you are actually your own most persistent and incredibly clever enemy. But you stand up anyway, and your feet hit the cold floor like they're landing on a completely different planet. The house becomes a museum of things you don't really recognize when the sun isn't hitting them directly. You find yourself making coffee in the pitch black because turning on a light feels like a violent act of war. The silence is so absolute that the sound of the water beginning to boil feels like a full-scale revolution. You sit there, wrapped in a heavy blanket, waiting for a sun that hasn't even thought about rising yet. There is a certain dry humor in it, sitting in the dark, pretending you are becoming a master of your own life. In reality, you are just a person in wrinkled pajamas, shivering and wondering exactly where it all went so wrong. But then, you step outside, and you realize the air is different than at any other possible time of the day. It is thin and sharp, and it carries the scent of things that are usually hidden by the dust and the traffic. You start to walk, or maybe you just sit on the porch and stare at the horizon, waiting for that first glow. Your body is still screaming for the pillow, but your mind starts to feel strangely. Well, it feels clear. It isn't the clarity of a genius. It is the quiet clarity of someone who simply has nowhere else to go. You are forced to face the thoughts you usually drown out with endless scrolling and the morning news cycle. They aren't always pretty thoughts, but at 3 a.m., they're at least honest, and that counts for something. You start to notice the contradictions in why you actually wanted to do this to yourself in the first place. Are you really here for the beauty of the sunrise? Or are you here because you want to feel better than others? It is a quiet, persistent question, and the answer usually hides somewhere in the long shadows of the trees. The first sliver of light appears on the edge of the world, and for a second, you forget that your legs are tired. It is a slow, steady change, a bruise-colored sky slowly turning into something like a pale, dusty orange. You realize that nature doesn't hurry for anyone, and it certainly doesn't care if you're watching it or not. The sun rises whether you have conquered your laziness or if you are still snoring loudly under your sheets. There is something deeply humbling about that, something that makes your discipline feel very small and fragile. But you keep doing it, day after day, until the physical hell starts to feel like a strange, rhythmic habit. You stop being a person who is trying to wake up and start being a person who is just already awake. Your friends think you have joined the cult, Or maybe they just miss seeing you stay out late for dinner. You start to trade your social life for a front row seat to a silent show that plays every single morning. Is it a fair trade? I honestly don't know yet, and I'm starting to think that the answer doesn't really matter. You feel like a demon of discipline when you see the first regular joggers hitting the pavement at 6 a.m. You have already lived a whole lifetime of thought while they were just dreaming about where they put their shoes. But then, by noon, the demon starts to feel a lot like a very tired, very confused, and very grumpy human. The pressure to be productive is high, but the energy to sustain that performance is sometimes incredibly low. You find yourself staring blankly at a white wall at 2 in the afternoon, wondering if any of this was worth it. You have mastered the morning, sure, but you have somehow lost the entire middle of your day to a grey fog. It is a trade-off that nobody ever mentions in those polished motivational videos you see on your feed. They show the glorious sunrise, but they never show the heavy exhaustion that settles in your brain much later. Still, there is a strange, quiet pride in knowing you saw the beginning of the world when everyone else was blind. You have seen the world without its makeup on, and that is a secret that you get to keep all for yourself. I wonder if we seek this kind of discipline because we want control, or because we are just afraid of the void. If we fill every quiet hour with meaningful activity, do we ever really have to stop and listen to ourselves? Maybe the real technique isn't the alarm clock at all, but the willingness to be alone with the heavy dark. If you are still listening to this, I wonder if you are nodding because you have felt that cold floor too. Or maybe you are just listening from the safety of your warm blankets, which is probably the smarter choice. There is no right way to exist in these hours, despite what the experts in the expensive hoodies tell you. We are all just trying to find a way to feel like we are finally steering the ship for at least 1 hour. The clock doesn't care if you're a hero or just a victim of your own restless and hungry ambition. Tomorrow morning, the alarm will go off again, and the long negotiation with your soul will start all over. I think I might leave the curtains open tonight, just to see what happens when the light hits the floor. It is a strange, lonely life we choose when we decide that sleep is the primary enemy of our progress. But then again, the sun is very bright, and the empty bed is very, very quiet when you aren't in it. The world looks different when nobody else is awake to see it. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.